Good evening, everybody. I just want to go in here. Right, there we go. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our supply chain evening, where I'm going to be your host and take you through the dynamics of supply chain management, how we navigate through it, at the same time unlocking business success. So welcome, everybody. I look forward to engaging with you this evening. Let me introduce myself, and then we can take it from there. So my name is Saloshini Naidoo, and I am going to spend some time, like I said, going through your supply chain management and the dynamics of it. A little bit about myself. I've got way over 20 some odd years of supply chain experience, coming through different industries, pharmaceutical industries, FMCG industries, packaging industries, and the likes. Got a couple of multinationals under my belt and worked through the supply chain, navigated through the different supply chain departments, functions, from technical through to quality, through to procurement, logistics, the whole lot. So what we're going to do tonight is I'm going to share with you the whole supply chain dynamics, how it operates within business. And the last 15 or so minutes, we will do a Q&A, and you are more than welcome to pop your questions in the chat as they come up. That's perfectly fine. We'll see to them right at the end. And if there's anything that you also want to bring up, you can as well. We'll address it all at the end. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to switch off the camera just for the bandwidth, and then we'll switch it back on again at the end when we do the Q&A. But let's just go through the actual slides. So let me just find my camera. There we go. Perfect. Okay, navigating through the dynamics of supply chain management. How this affects our business, what does this mean for each of us in our different areas, and exactly how does it work? The agenda that I've put together for you today is around what is supply chain management, why is it important to every business, and remember I'm saying every business because whether you are producing, manufacturing, or you're providing a service, supply chain management comes into those businesses as well. We're going to unpack and understand the current and the future trends of supply chain management, as well as the opportunities and the challenges that it proposes. We've got a little section around you can change the world. I want to tell you about the amazing things within supply chain, the different functions. And then, like I said, in the last 15 minutes or so, we'll do a Q&A there. Any questions that you want to ask around going into supply chain, around being in supply chain, what it's like, the different functions of supply chain, and so forth. Okay, excellent. So if we start right here and we look at the first question, what is supply chain? You're going to look at the picture on the animation on the right-hand side, and this just gives you an overview of what supply chain, just a glance of what it might look like. So you'd find people taking orders, you would find inventory coming through, you would find clients or account managers meeting with clients, taking in orders. You would find warehousing and distribution going around. A whole host of things happens. And let me tell you, it happens all at the same time. So here's the thing. Supply chain management or supply chain and the management of supply chain does not go to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, nonstop. But I'm going to go into that. I don't want to get ahead of myself. If we look down here on my slide, Dr. Robert Hanfield, he defined procurement management or supply chain management, procurement being part of it. But he defined supply chain management as the following, and I want to break up his quote here as we go through it. He says, it is the active management of supply chain activities to maximize customer value and achieve a sustainable competitive advantage. Now, if I break that down, active management of supply chain activities. So we understand that supply chain is a chain of activities to keep raw materials coming into a factory, getting produced into an output, going to store in a warehouse, getting on a truck, and going to the customer. All of the activities that happen in there being actively managed, which tells us that there's a physical management of these activities, which tells us there's a systematic management of this activity, which tells us that there's a financial management of pulling all of these activities together. Why? To maximize customer value. Now, value can be so many different things to so many different people, but you and I as customers, we want what we want in the form of a product or service. We want it at the right price. We want it at the right quality. We want it at the right time, delivered to the right place, when we want it, how we want it. And the thing is, as a business providing this customer value, it's not just meeting it, it's maximizing it. Because again, as customers, if we don't get what we want, we will go next door and shop there. And as a business, we do not want to lose the customers. So we got to maximize on the value. And the last bit he talks about is a sustainable competitive advantage. So ladies and gentlemen, in a marketplace, we are all players. You've got customers and potential customers. You've got suppliers and potential suppliers. You've got you, who's your business, and you've got all your competitors, never mind the regulators and the government and the stakeholders, never mind everybody else. But here's the thing. Every single player in that marketplace is competing. So as a business of the supply chain, managing the supply chain means that we've got to keep ahead of the game. We've got to have that competitive advantage sustainable. All right. So that's him. That's unpacking what Dr. Robert Hanfield says. For us, supply chain management is around producing goods from raw materials and then distributing those goods to your customer. Your supply chain will start with the customer and end with the customer simply because it's what the customer orders, what it is he wants, and everything that we do internally, from the translation, the transformation of raw materials into finished goods, and then actually storing it and distributing it from a logistics point. Managing these activities within the supply chain means knowing your supplier and managing him, understanding your manufacturing processes and managing that, and then knowing your customers and managing those relationships as well. And here's the thing. We got to do all of that by increasing customer value, and we got to do all of it at the lowest possible cost. It starts and it ends with the customer. Okay. From this slide, it's just giving you an idea. And because I said it starts with the customer, I want to say this. The customer places their orders through a sales forecast that your sales team would pull together. That sales forecast gets into the business and it gets translated into a demand plan. The demand plan then forms the basis for a number of functions within the supply chain. Procurement will take that demand plan and they'll create a procurement plan of what they need to buy so that production can produce. The factory will take that demand plan and they'll create a production plan to know what they're going to need to make or manufacture. Inventory management will take that demand plan and they will look at what stock they have on hand and work with procurement to bring what needs to be brought in. Your distribution centers, your retail distribution centers, they also now look to see from a finished goods plan, which comes from that demand plan, that they are meeting the criteria and the demands of that customer. It goes to the retailers and finally it gets to the customer. While there is a physical flow of goods and services moving all the way from the supplier to the customer, there's also information flow that's happening. You see, if the customer orders 1,000 tables and we translate that sales forecast into a demand plan, we know that one table has 4 legs and table and let's say 20 screws. To make 1,000 tables, you're going to have to multiply that by 1,000. And then that information in the form of a plan or a system information in the form of your ERP, MRP, all of that gets into the business and it gets distributed from there. Apart from the physical flow and the information flow, you've also got a financial flow. I mean, we want to buy material, we need money. We want to produce goods, we need money. For it to be transported, we need money. And there's money also coming in from the customer to help with this. That then just gives us an overview, okay? If we now go in and understand the different business levels within our business, it also helps us to fully understand how supply chain fits in. So let's look at it this way. Whether we are a multinational business, whether we are a local business, every company opens its doors to make a profit. These days, economic profit is not enough because we've got a whole social responsibility as well as an environmental responsibility that also kicks in. So from a strategic point of view, your business leaders, your business owners, or your corporate, organization looks at the vision that they have for the business, what it is they want, by when they want to achieve it, and why they want to achieve it. So it's more long-term. Once that is decided on, then they share it with the middle management team, and they come up with where are we going to do this and how are we going to do it. It's more medium term. And then, of course, it goes down to the people that actually get the job done, how it gets done, the day-to-day runnings, and so forth. So if I had to break this down into a very, very simple example, if this is our business and we're producing chocolates, let's say, our strategy would be as the leadership team, we'd like to grow our business by 15% by the year 2027. We'd like to grow market share by like I said, 15% and profit share by 10%. So we're very smart in terms of what that strategy looks like, right? Now, what you'll figure out is, as part of the strategic team, we didn't say how it's going to get done. We didn't say where it's going to get done. We have a vision of what we want and by when we want it. We then take that and we pass it down to the next level. And then this team now starts to look at it and they say, to grow by 15% in 3 years, that means we can look at a year one as 5% growth. All right, if we need to grow by 5%, do we have machine capacity? Do we have the human resource talent? Will our systems hold up? Our warehouse is big enough. So now we're talking about how we're going to do it, where we're going to do it, right? And then at an operational level, it's every single thing that we do every single day needs to feed into the strategy. Can it be done? So the alignment is always there. Quite early in my supply chain days, I got told by a very, very motivator or motivational leader at a very large company, and he said to me, every single thing that you do on a day-to-day basis must be aligned to the strategy, which means you need to understand what the strategy is. So operationally, we feed into that strategy. Okay, now just want to move this thing quickly to the top. There we go. I told you that the supply chain flows from the customer back to the customer. So when the customer places that order, it goes through the whole demand plan, supply plan, procurement creates their plan, material arrives, inbound logistics, it gets produced according to that plan, it goes into the outbound logistics, warehousing, and it gets distributed. There's a couple of things I just want to add here. Not so long ago, outbound logistics, so that is warehousing and distribution, were actually the adopted cousins of the supply chain. They weren't integrated into supply chain. And what we would call it back then is a hole in the wall. So we would produce, get everything done, get the finished product, and it goes through the hole in the wall to the logistics team. Once it gets to the other side, everybody on this side of the wall, their job is done. Now, supply chain started to pull in logistics as part of the supply chain flow. Here's the thing. Logistics is a massive component, cost component of the supply chain. Just think about it. The modes of transport, the warehousing, the storing, all of that is a massive cost component of the supply chain. Even if on the other side of the wall, if we do everything correct and all of the cost is sitting in logistics, we're not having full transparency. Hence, the integration of logistics into supply chain so that we can see what starts with the customer actually gets delivered to the customer as and when they want it. Okay, so that's your supply chain flow. I really hope everybody's writing down questions or things that you want to share, so with that, when we get to the end, we can have a good discussion. Your supply chain objectives, there's always been 5, and more recently, the sustainability objective has kicked in. Now, the amazing thing about these objectives is that I can take all 6 objectives and create goals for production. I can do the same for procurement. I can do the same for finance, right? The thing is, all of these objectives need to apply in every function. It needs to apply across the supply chain. Quality is measurable in terms of defects, in terms of right first time, however you're measuring it. Speed is also measurable in terms of efficiencies, OEEs in the factory, speed in terms of delivery of goods. Dependability is measured on time in full or OTIF, where we're looking at if we say to a customer to expect the delivery by 12 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon, they need to know they can rely on us. And dependability is also for unforeseen circumstances. If I can't get it there by that time, am I dependable, reliable enough to communicate that with the customer? All of that puts under there. Flexibility is a big one. Flexibility is, are we agile enough to change our plan to accommodate the customer? Are we able to look at product development? Are we able to keep up with the market? Are we flexible enough? Is our supply chain flexible enough to change things around without incurring additional costs? The 5th one is cost. We got to keep our costs down in production, in the way we procure, in logistics, in every part of it, cost is measured. And the 6th one then is the sustainability. And this is around the environment, around the people. So it's the 3 Ps, the people, profit, and planet. That's it. Okay. And there's objectives to measure that: carbon footprint, waste to landfill, effluent, all of those things also sit in there. Right. The second part of this area is, why is supply chain important to every business? Now, you know, we were taught to believe that there's competition between businesses. Where we are right now, from a globalized view even, the competition is actually between supply chains. It's not even between businesses, it's between supply chains. So if I had to think of an example of 2 companies producing a similar product, competitors, but one company produces it and sells it for 10 Rand per item, the other company produces it and sells it for 12 Rand per item, because if they get it down to 10 Rand, they are going to run at a loss. Now, how is that one company can do it at a lower cost and the other one can't, and still maintaining quality, packaging, and the rest? It's because of their supply chain. You see, within the supply chain, if we are able to reduce costs by the way we buy, if we're able to reduce costs because we have good relationships with our suppliers and partnerships internally, if we're able to reduce costs because we keep our net working capital low and we have a good cash flow from a financial position, if we are able to manage our costs and our quality by practicing lean principles and meeting demand, and we've got transparency from a systematic physical point of view, then we're going to make a saving, and we can pass on some of that saving to our customers. And guess what? We've got good competitive advantage. And that's why supply chain is important to every business. That's why we want that transparency all the way from the customer to the customer. It improves efficiencies throughout every function within the supply chain and the business. It reduces costs and waste. Risk management happens within supply chain. You see the problem, you find the root cause, and you manage that risk. Customer service happens within supply chains as well. And I spoke about the competitive advantage. The thing is, inside every supply chain, you've got customers and you've got suppliers. And I'm not talking about the external supplier and customer. I'm talking about every function at one point is a customer, and at one point is a supplier to the next function, right? The next department. Now, if we as internal suppliers provide to our customer on time in full delivery, excellent quality at the right price, what do you think is going to happen to the external customer? They're going to get that without us even putting in the extra effort, because we're doing it internally already. It's part of what we do. Okay. If we move into the next area, which is your current and your future trends. Now, before we even talk about the current trends of where we are going, supply chain has come such a long way, and it's moved quite quickly in the last couple of years, right? We still got a whole lot more coming, we're talking about a fifth industrial revolution and all of your robotics and artificial intelligence, blockchain, and all of that. But before I even go there, if we go back a couple of decades, and if I take a simple setup like bread production, the production of bread has been there for many years. And, businesses or bread producing companies would produce the bread and in mass, and then they would go out and sell the bread. Now, a lot of the information that they received would be manually documented. A lot of their sales would be manually documented. And the innovation, in terms of preservatives, in terms of extending shelf life, they weren't even expiry dates. You stopped eating the bread when it wasn't good enough to eat. And then we moved away, and we became so excited when things like Excel spreadsheets came about, because now you had formulas in there, they were calculating for you, and you still had to put information in, etc., etc. And then we got even better when we started to have ERP systems come about, and the capturing was a lot better. You could see the whole enterprise end to end. It looked at your materials resourcing, your procurement planning, all of that got in there. Orders would come in, it would be able to tell you what you needed, and. So I just want us to have that little bit of history of where we got to. And now, from an innovative point of view, just sticking with the bread, we don't just produce white bread and brown bread that lasts for 2 days. You've got a whole variety. Innovation is part of supply chain. You've got a whole development in terms of the shelf life of the bread. You've also got a pull system where you've got orders coming into the system, so you know what needs to be done. You've got variety and variation. You've got a supply chain that preloads it and automatically weighs it according to the recipe that's put into the system. And we've come such a long way, and we've still got more to go. Okay. The coming years, or some of the years we've gone through already, has brought about so many opportunities, but it's also brought about so many challenges. And many of you can actually agree with me. When these ERP systems kicked in, we all felt like we were going crazy with all of the teething issues and the challenges and, managing the technologies. Even to this day, I see lots of businesses where you've got, you've spent millions of rands on an ERP system and you still got 22 spreadsheets on the side, right? So we've come a long way in terms of the challenges, in terms of the technology. Businesses have started to focus on their supply chains, on their processes within their supply chain, to be more agile, to be more resilient. In the second point, we're talking about unexpected disruptions. I dare you guys to go and speak to anybody in supply chain, whether it's in production, whether it's in the warehouse, whether it's in inventory or planning, and you ask them what it is that they dislike the most. And they will very, very, very plainly tell you where he hates stop-starts. We don't like stopping. Production will say we try to minimize changeovers. Procurement will say we do not like stoppages in the supply chain. We want continuity of supply chain, of delivery. And logistics will tell you the same thing. So supply chain resilience is saying, what mitigation do we have in? If there's disruptions for whatever reason that comes about, how do we combat those disruptions? How do we become more resilient? If the customer changes their mind, how do we, still go on and give them what it is they want without it being an additional cost to us? Then we've got technology, and we talk about robotics, artificial intelligence, and automation. And these are the trends that we're going with. I remember many years ago in one of the organizations I worked with, where we had these very big robots, that would pick up the product and put it, put it into a carton and then onto the palletizer, for example. Fascinating to watch. And these days we've got so much more automation that allows us as a supply chain function to be more agile, to be able to switch things around quite quickly. And the scale in which we can do it at is high as well. And then the last point there talks about the blockchain. And blockchain is something that, is amazing, because you've got a full-on distributed ledger that records all of the transactions that can happen in multiple locations, and you still have the transparency for the audit trail. And it really, really helps to store this data in different blocks and to be able to manage that in chunks of data. On the right-hand side, you can see we've got the trends that have come up. And yes, it's outdated, and there'll probably be an updated one maybe later on in the year. But I just wanted to show you here. From 2022 to 2023, the number one trend that was ranking, and it stayed at number one, is big data and analytics. And it's still the case. It's your business intelligence, it's understanding the analytics. And as human beings, we go into data and we look for patterns and we look for improvement through those patterns. We see data and we suddenly want to draw graphs and look for these patterns and look to improve. If you look at digital supply chains, move from number 5 to number 2. The new stuff that came up was the robotics, essential goods, smart logistics, and smart logistics and the whole Internet of Things around GPS. It's around tracking your goods. It's around, having a digitized supply chain, buying online, ensuring that you can pay on the same platform that you are buying on, selecting, tracking your delivery, all of those trends has taken supply chain to the next level. All right. Now, globalization. This has been the buzzword for a while. And globalization, for us in South Africa, and I'm sure lots of other countries, feel in a similar way. But for us in South Africa, globalization means that where we were playing in a little pond, going down the road to buy something, just working within the confines of the country in a little pond. And globalization now has taken us across the seas. So if I can't find something in my own little area, I can go anywhere in the world and by the click of a button, be able to purchase, by the click of a button, be able to source, be able to view, to get information. I can compare. So yes, it's opened up tons and tons of opportunities. But ladies and gentlemen, it's also brought tons and tons of challenges. It's small businesses to perform from a global perspective is not that easy. Big businesses also needs to take into account all of the laws and regulations across the different countries. So while globalization pulled us all together so that we, the whole world, and literally the whole world becomes your oyster because you can shop anywhere from all over. The trading of goods and services, the best practice sharing, the development, the collaboration has also opened up infinite opportunities for us completely. The challenges I'm speaking about is the fact that supply chains now have to be very, very streamlined because of the complexities that come with it. So let me put it this way. The whole globe, the Earth, Southern Hemisphere and Northern Hemisphere. When the Southern Hemisphere is asleep, the Northern Hemisphere is shopping, let's say shopping, whether it's business shopping or whether it's individual shopping. By the time the Southern Hemisphere wakes up, the whole system is flooded with movement of goods, transportation, logistics, manufacturing. And by the time the vice versa, when the Southern Hemisphere is awake and the Northern Hemisphere is asleep. So what I'm saying is that globalization has created a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week running. Supply chain never sleeps. It's ongoing, ongoing, and ongoing. Right, good. We've now come to the opportunities and challenges. The opportunities and challenges that we experience in supply chain, I'm going to start with the opportunities because we want to start with the positive. There are phenomenal supply chain opportunities within supply chain. And that's because you can have the most amazing, long and exciting career. You can start in inventory, you can move to planning, you can move to procurement, technical, product development, logistics, transportation. There's just so many, it's endless. You will never have a dull moment because no 2 days are the same. You can work through your supply chain and management of the different activities and understand who the market leaders are and what happens and how you get to be in there by streamlining your supply chain. The application of supply chain across industries. Here I'm talking about, let's say, for example, we want to bring in lean manufacturing or lean improvements, continuous improvement into our business. And let's say we're an FMCG industry. The application of lean comes from an automobile industry. It comes from the likes of Toyota and some of the other Japanese automobile industries. But we can take that lean principle and apply it within our supply chain because at the end of the day, supply chain speaks supply chain language. Okay, so it's not about the business and the products, it's about the supply chain. That's where the competition is. Standardization is another one. Best practices is what I'm talking about. Shared objectives. Now, this is amazing. You see, back in the day, before supply chain existed, everybody worked in silos. Like I said, we didn't know what happened on the other side of the wall. Nobody knew what procurement was buying. No one knew what was happening in the inventory warehouse. Now we all have shared objectives because supply chain is end to end. And improvement doesn't stop. It continues and continues and continues. Another another very a big opportunity within supply chain is all the roles you can go into. You see, the professionals who run supply chain play a very, very critical role. They cannot stop any activity because if you look here, if you look to the right of the screen, movement of raw materials is ongoing. The supplier keeps going because the manufacturing keeps going. The trucks keep going because this product customers want. And the customer keeps shopping. I mean, that's what we do. So it doesn't stop. The people behind all of these functions also have to keep going because they're keeping the business doors open. They're keeping the economies running. They're keeping the country moving. And the different roles within supply chain, whether it's in technology, whether it's in product development, whether it's in technical quality production, wherever it is, there is so many roles and room for growth and improvement because the demand within the different industries does not stop. And the training and development for growth also doesn't stop. So a career in supply chain, you are assured of a wide variety of work. You can climb up the corporate ladder if you so wish, and you are ensured of job satisfaction, working and learning at the same point. So I want to quickly get to the challenges so that we can get to our Q&A portion of the evening. Now, nothing comes without hard work and challenges. And some of the challenges that a lot of supply chain people experience: material scarcity. So sometimes, I mean, in the last couple of years, we've had a pandemic, we've had a couple of wars, we've had natural disasters, ports were congested, it interfered with pricing. We've had issues with logistics, with borders being closed, and strikes and rioting. We've had customers that have become so fussy in terms of what they want. We've had the whole online shopping and delivery, digital transformation. Countries in the West have had such high inflation rates that they never had before. Political issues, cultural language, there's so many challenges. We've experienced quite a bit in our time in the last few years. Now, the thing with these challenges is that they can be overcome, right? If you look at point 2, it's talking about the talent. And what you would have found is in the last couple of years, there's been a massive search for supply chain talent, where we're looking for process engineers, or we're looking for operational people, or we're looking for procurement people. There's been quite a bit. And it's formed a lot of regulatory bodies to help fulfill or ensure that this talent is within the organization. The other challenges, like your complexities, have also come through. The pressure of suppliers, the pressure of delivering on time, those sort of things. Then we've had all the natural disasters that I spoke about. Number 5, compliance. There are so many rules and regulations with what governance, how we are governed by these compliance within our organizations, within our industries, within the laws of the land, as well as within the international laws as well. And then, of course, the price and the costing issues are nonstop, right? There's a lot of pressure to cut costs. And then the last one is on the volatile areas. I think I spoke about it in terms of your demand and supply. shortages, delays, and working around it. So the good news is that, yes, we can overcome the supply chain challenges. We'd have to understand our business. We'd have to put in tools and techniques. We'd have to measure, monitor trend. We'd have to develop our people. We'd have to automate and work through lean principles, develop sourcing strategies of how we do this, a leverage of economies of scale, get better systems to forecast a whole lot better, improve our supplier relationship management, and manage our customer relationships a lot better. And once we start working internally with all of those things, it releases our cash flow, reduces our net working capital, makes us more flexible, makes us more resilient. Collaboration through our partnerships comes through, and there's transparency for problem solving and for celebration as well. Yeah. I spoke earlier about the tools, the ERP tools. Now, our ERP tools, enterprise resource planning, actually has inside of it, your materials resource planning, your human resource planning, finance does it. It looks at your cash flow, all of that. And I told you earlier that, not so long ago, logistics made up of warehousing and distribution were like the adopted cousins to supply chain. They sat outside of it. And the warehouse then had a warehouse management system that looked at inventory tracking, order picking, and then transportation, the distribution side had a transport management system that looked at their route planning and their carrier rating and how they manage their freight. And there are lots of businesses that I come across these days that the ERP system or the WMS and the TMS work outside the ERP system. Now, to integrate it costs a lot of money, but for a full supply chain, we should be having a full-on view end to end. What's happening in the warehouse as well as in distribution and everywhere else. So new systems that are going through builds it all together. And, the guys that have it separately look at ways to integrate it so that we function a lot better. All right. Eleanor Roosevelt said to us, you must do the things you think you cannot do. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to say that that's what supply chain does. You come out of a really rough week and you think, how did I even do that? How did I get through it? I couldn't see the other side past that mountain, but guess what? I can change the world one step at a time. And supply chain allows you to do that because of the transparency. This slide is just around the different industries. So, you've got FMCG, you've got retail industries, pharmaceutical, consulting industries, construction, service industries. And those are all the companies. I mean, you might find your company in here for those of you that are here. And the companies are here and the different industries are there. And we can learn of the industries because supply chain speaks the supply chain language. All right then. What is it that you would like to know? We're back on and we've got 10 minutes left and I'm very happy to take on any questions and anything else that you might have. So let's do this. Let's see if I can, I want to stop sharing because that's going to help. Okay, and then I can go in and see your questions. All right. Share notes. I'm very happy to do that. I will just speak to the Regent team and you'd be able to, the session has been recorded. You'd be able to have a look and see from there. Pull this up here. Right. Then, especially manufacturers don't like stopping stability in order to absolutely, Adelson, absolutely anybody in your supply chain will tell you that they hate stops and starts. And the way I explain it to a lot of my students is saying, if you're driving on the freeway, it's 120 kilometers per hour, right? You don't want to stop because you can't get to 120 straight away. You got to now start up again. And if you're driving a manual car, gears, all of that. It's the same for your production. It's the same for procurement. It's the same for the transport guys. You just don't want to stop. Okay. Very informative. Thank you, guys. I try to get in. Maybe it's too much, but I try to get in as much as I can. Lorraine says inflation is the big enemy, and poor infrastructure causes you to go too far for good places to shop. Absolutely. And this is now when your digitization comes on. I mean, look at how far we've come. We shop online, and whilst you shop online and you select whatever it is that you need, your payment is also there. You remember not so long ago, we had to go into another place and actually do an EFT and then show proof that it was paid. Here it's done online. And then on top of that, you can actually track your delivery. If it's going to be 2 days or 3 days, and you can see exactly where it is. Should one wait to finish the degree before looking for opportunities in supply chain? Well, that's really a decision, that you would choose. A lot of us would, I mean, back in my day, there was no supply chain. We did individual components of it. And then when supply chain came about, yes, you went and you learned, got your experience and studied. So looking for opportunities in supply chain is something you can do whilst you're studying. It's some experience that you can get whilst you're studying. The other thing is that there's not a lot of institutes that actually offer supply chain management as a study. So that's something to look at as well. Given I'm also looking forward to the exciting journey with you. How do you determine the cost in logistics? I believe you said logistics is the most component of the supply chain management. Absolutely. So if you take logistics, you've got to understand that there's a transportation component and there's a warehouse component, right? If you think about warehousing, you are renting out space per meter squared. So that comes at a cost. If you're not fulfilling that full quota of the area that you have spent on, then that is a wasted cost. From a transportation point of view, you want to make sure that you are transporting, you're planning your routes well so that you're not traveling, to the one place half empty, or you are, returns management, you're making sure that your truck is always full. Also, part of your distribution is if you're shipping things from other countries, you've got tax and duties. You've got the whole transportation leg. It's coming by a ship and then it's got to do the road transport to get to somewhere. You're building in your delivered pricing. What does that look like? Then you've got your CPI rate, your market indices that actually tell you what that costing should be like. You've got fuel costs. So all of that goes into it. If you're asking me how to break down that cost, so from a procurement space, if I am working with a supplier and I want to understand what the logistics component of that cost is, I will ask for a cost model. Fuel would be linked, right? Because it's a commodity, you can't really negotiate too much there. But working on in terms of how they are costing you per load and how they're managing that route will also determine what that cost is. Okay, is there a difference between warehouse and distribution center? Yes. So your DCs, and Siyabonga, I'm going to give it to you like this. If we take, let's take Woolworths as an example, as a retailer, right? If I am producing Beacon or Nest Cadbury chocolates, Mondelez, right? If I'm producing Cadbury chocolates and Woolworths is one of my suppliers, I produce at Mondelez and I will store it at my warehouse. And let's say that's in Johannesburg somewhere. That's the warehouse. Now, when Woolworths places an order, let's say they need 100,000 units of chocolate, then it will get transported to their DC. And let's say if their distribution center is sitting in the south of Johannesburg, then that's where it will be. And once it gets to their DC, it then gets transported to each of the stores in the area. I hope that explains it. Okay. Okay, Tapelo, can I be able to be absorbed into the industry without the exact degree of supply chain, only a postgraduate diploma? Okay, that's a hard question because I don't know the different companies and the different industries that you'd want to go into. But to gain that experience, you'd probably have to take a few steps back to actually understand and then go into it. Because it's two different industries from the Department of Education into supply chain. Okay. Okay, in logistics, do we use Muda, Mura, and Muri like we do in quality? Absolutely. Because Muda, Mura, and Muri is actually waste, right? It's the different types of waste, and it is a lean principle. So lean principle needs to go from the customer to the customer, and supply chain moves from the customer to the customer. So wherever anything is moving, you're going to have different types of waste. And in logistics, you're going to do the same. Are we overproducing? Are we over processing? Are we wasting intellect? All of those things will come in, absolutely. Share the recording. Does public procurement differ from the private sector manual? Absolutely. So remember, the supply chain itself is one language, right? So you're going to have policies that you're governed by. You're going to have different procedures in the different sectors. So in the different departments within supply chain. Finance will have their own policies and procedures. Procurement will have theirs. The warehouse will have theirs. The private sector, because you are governed within that organization together with the laws and the regulatory bodies for that country, for that sector, we would have to follow that. But in the public procurement, it's the public sector. So your governance and your policies is determined from a public space, which would mean a governmental part of it. So let's say in the public sector, they might look at outsourcing, which is what they do, outsourcing some of their, let's say, procurement, for example. What are the policies then to do that? They would run a tender. How would the tender work? Adjudication systems or adjudicating committee would have to come in. And because you are procuring and your customer is the public, the country, the governance would be slightly different. Private, you are producing for the consumer. When doing the forecast, how do we calculate the lead time? What must be included in the purchasing tool? Okay, so when you're running a forecast for procurement or for the purchasing component of it, you need to understand where's your product coming from, how much it needs to travel, and then how long does it take to get produced. So, and that will be your lead time. So let's say, for example, if I'm buying material from China, and China says to me that it's going to take them 3 days to produce. However, once it's produced, it goes into their warehouse, it stays there 2 days, and then it gets to the port. And then I calculate how long it's going to stay on the water. And when it comes to the port here in South Africa, is it going into a holding, a governmental holdings? Because, for them to release it, it's called a bonded warehouse. And if it's going in there, that might take a week for clearance. So I calculate that, and it's going to be 2 months. Okay. Can't we like introducing logistics in our school curriculum? I can't answer that, but it would be an absolute amazing thing to do, because I think people need to understand the whole demand and supply of economics, and within the supply chain, how we add to it. Okay, so the recording of the webinar, guys, will be available on your YouTube channel. Brilliant. Okay, let's see what Eugene says. With the likes of Amazon and Take-A-Lot distributors in the country, how is it impacting our economy, particularly with goods that are procured abroad? Isn't that crippling our manufacturing sector? So the thing is that it's competition. Remember I said earlier that we were operating in a pond because it was just us, and now we're operating in the whole ocean, which then tells us, is our supply chain resilient enough? What should we be doing instead of our consumers going to the likes of Amazon? Why are they going there? What's the costing looking like? It's really about that, you know, and how do we compete and what do we do to stay afloat? Okay. So yes, absolutely. I think it's around really understanding what are they doing? What's their model looking like? How do we adapt? Can we go digital? What else can we do? Guys, a very, very amazing example here is, you know, during COVID, when we couldn't leave our homes and you had online shopping and delivery. And if you remember, Pick and Pays and the Woolworths were trying to get this done. And what I found is that they couldn't deliver the same day. You probably had a 2-3 day, sometimes a 5 day waiting period. But Checkers did it. They didn't just do it in the day, they did it within 60 minutes. So the challenge was, how do we get through to the whole of South Africa and deliver? I mean, how do we do this? And that was the challenge. And Checkers overcame that challenge. And you know what? Right now, they are leading in that because they've got it right. And they've done so well that they're revamping the stores, and the 60/60 is still going on. So Eugene, I think there's a lot of opportunity to understand the different models and what we can do differently. Thanks, Chantel, for your message. Salepa, I manage raw materials on site and run the internal logistics. Will studying supply chain management make my job easier? I believe so. I believe so because especially, you know, when there's real life examples like what I'm sharing with you, helps take the experience from industry and match it to the theoretical knowledge, and the match between the two helps you to do things a whole lot differently. How is the complexity of getting employed straight after degree? What are the most complex trends should one really have to compete with other candidates looking for employment? If so, how can one strategize in this? All right. So getting employed after a degree, and we know the unemployment rate in our country, it's high, it's difficult. The thing that a lot of big companies look for in the supply chain arena is people that are quick on their feet in the terms of what are they bringing to the party. Now, you might say, I've got no experience, I don't really know. But the thing is, how do you learn to think on your feet and actually bring in that change? So a good example, and I do this with my students at Regent all of the time, is put them through these scenarios. You know, we've got this, these are the obstacles, these are the challenges, the customers screaming at you, what would you do? What would you do in that case? And they would come up with things that they never thought of before. And that's one way of getting employed, because that's what we need, right? Hobby, how are we going to get the recording? Yes, absolutely. And guess what, guys? I've actually gone through all of the questions and all of the chats. Is there anything else? Is there anything else that anybody wants to know or to add? I'm not sure the next webinar. I think just keep yourself posted, and Regent's very good at putting these things up, and yeah. Thanks, Calvin. Guys, it's been an absolute amazing hour spent with you. You can see I'm very passionate about supply chain, and I'm very humbled by the learnings that I have had to experience through my time within the industry. And being able to share all of that with you guys has been an amazing experience. So thank you very much for joining me. The recording will be up. It will be on your YouTube channel. Thank you, Adelson, that I really tried to keep it as simple and as clear as possible for everybody. I do hope to see you on the other side in some of the classes or with the studies. And I'm going to wish you all the best in everything that you do. And I look forward to our next time. Take care, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Bye-bye.